Pauline, thanks for joining us again. I've got to go first to the Sky News Pulse survey, the latest poll. There you are, 30% ahead of Labor, crushing the coalition, riding this wave. You've always got to keep a lid on it, but this has been sustained and it's across a wide range of polling.
Look, Chris, it is, I'm not going to change my tune on this, but I've said constantly, it's like the stock exchange. Look, I was down, a few days ago, I was down a couple of points. Roy Morgan poll had me down, 5 percentage points. Look, the real polling day is on election day. That's it, all right? But it is a clear indication also that the people have had enough of this government and the opposition. So that's what it's clearly telling us. They don't want what they are offering.
30%. That's how far ahead One Nation is polling against Labor right now. And if you think that's just a blip, buckle up, because Pauline Hanson just sat down with Chris Kenny and did not hold back. I'm going to break down exactly what was said, why it matters, and why half the country is nodding along while the other half is losing their minds. Let's get into it. Before we dive in, hit that subscribe button and turn on notifications. We drop videos like this multiple times a day, so if you want to stay ahead of the news cycle instead of 3 days behind it, you know what to do. All right, let's talk numbers. So Chris Kenny opens with the obvious question. How do you explain being 30 points ahead of Labor and smashing the coalition too? And Hanson's answer is classic Hanson. Cautious but savage at the same time. She basically says polls are polls, the only one that counts is election day, but then immediately turns around and says this surge is a flat-out rejection of both major parties. Her read, Australians are fed up, housing's unaffordable, young people feel hopeless, debt is out of control, and she puts a lot of that squarely on immigration levels outpacing what the country can actually build and support. Now here's where it gets spicy. Kenny brings up the government's $50,000 home guarantee scheme, the one designed to help first home buyers get in with a smaller deposit, and Hanson is not having it.
Now, most of us have been there before. I went through it myself. When you stretch yourself for a mortgage and times are tough, and you know that you owe as much as the house is worth, and you're worried about your employment security, you're worried about your family. It's terrible, right? You've got to be able to hang in there. So people in negative equities, not to be sneezed at, and this is a worry that the government's actually using taxpayers' guarantees to push more people into that situation.
Correct. And they did the wrong thing. And I oppose that 5% government helping you to get into your own home. You've set them up for failure. If you're going to get $50,000 towards your own home, and if you're flat out saving the monies for it, I know it's hard for the young ones, but I blame Labor about it. We don't have the tradies to build the houses. That's why the ones we do have, it's escalating prices. We have a real problem out there. It's going to take a lot to turn it around, Chris.
Yeah, I think it's a real worry.
Her argument is blunt. You're setting people up to buy at the top of the market with barely any equity cushion, and if prices correct even slightly, those buyers get wiped into negative equity almost overnight. Is she right? Is she wrong? That's a whole debate for the comments section, but you can't deny it's a bold call to make on national television. But here's the part of this interview that's actually blowing up online, and it's not the polling, it's not even the housing stuff, it's the word monoculture.
For instance, that analogy that you use and Anthony Albanese used, that is the Socceroos. He looks at the Socceroos and sees all the different ethnicities involved and says, doesn't that show how we're multicultural? You look at the Socceroos and say how they're all in green and gold playing for Australia. So it's a matter of whether do you want to emphasise what brings us together, or do you emphasise what our differences are? 66%
of people out of 11,000 that were actually questioned over this, 66% said they agree with monoculture. And don't tell me we never have been. We are multiracial, but at the end of the day, we must be, of the one culture. And I'll put to people out there, if you want your multiculturalism, well, then prepared to, do you want Sharia law? I don't. Do you want multiple marriages? I don't. Do you want the gangs that come here from other countries think it's quite all right to roam the streets with machetes? I don't. So when you talk about you want multiculturalism, be ready and prepared for all these other cultural traditions that they want to bring to this country. And that's why I'm defending the Australian culture, way of life, and respecting the men and women that have fought and died for this country, for our values, our morals, our principles, our culture, our laws. That's what monoculture is.
Kenny asks her straight up, what do you even mean by that compared to multiculturalism as we know it today? And Hanson's answer is genuinely more nuanced than the headlines suggest. She's not talking about race. She says Australia is multiracial, people from over 160 countries, but she argues the country needs to be one culture, one set of laws, one shared identity everyone signs up to. She even uses this sports analogy. Think the Socceroos. Every background under the sun, but they all wear the same jersey, play by the same rules for the same team. That's her version of monoculture. Then she goes further, and this is the bit that's got people talking. She throws out a challenge. If you want full-blown multiculturalism with zero limits, are you also comfortable with parallel legal systems, different rules for different groups? That's the line she's drawing. Love her or loathe her, you cannot say she's boring. And she caps it off with what she calls the real test of belonging. Not where your grandparents were born, not your accent, but this single question. If this country was ever under threat, would you stand up and defend it? For Hanson, that's the whole ball game. Allegiance over ancestry. So look, whether you think this is common sense patriotism or something more divisive, this interview is going to be dissected online for days. And honestly, that's exactly why we cover it, because you deserve to see the full picture, not just the 10-second clip somebody cut for outrage. If this kind of breakdown is useful to you, smash that like button, drop your take in the comments, agree, disagree, I want to hear it, and subscribe so you don't miss what we're covering next, because trust me, there's more coming today. This is One News Australia. We'll see you in the next one.